Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Lionel, and I'm your host for LT Productions. You are watching Speak Up. I'm coming to you with a solo Speak Up on a topic that's been trending. When I heard about it, I said, wow. But this is in regards to Q from Day 26. And also, it deals with Dawn and, of course, Diddy. And we're going to get into that for a little while. I appreciate everyone for coming to my channel. Please like this video, subscribe, and leave your comments below. Alright, so let's speak up. Okay, so Q, who is from Day 26, which was one of the musical groups that Diddy did form. Back then, he was known as Puff Daddy. And this band was formulated out of is it not Meet the Band? Oh my lord. The band project that Diddy was on. I don't know why I can't think of it right now. But anyways, of course, the other group was a girl group, which was called Danity 6. So Q is giving his insight on TJ Holmes and Miss Amy, I forgot her last name, podcast that they have. We have Aubrey O'Day, who's been on there, I guess, all week, kind of being a correspondent with the trial. People thought that she was going to be a witness on trial, but she wasn't. And then they're like, why is she here? Y'all acting like she has power to tell these lawyers, get me to be a witness. No, the witnesses have their own plan. The lawyers have their own plan. So I don't know what that was all about. So they get into the nit and gritty of it, because we do find out that Q was drugged at some point, and it has some major ramifications on him. The first question that was asked to Q, did you know about the mistreatment? I'm trying to be YouTube friendly. I don't know if I can say the A word, but you know what that is. ABUSE of Cassie. He said yes, but he did not know about the free calls. But the mistreatment of Cassie wasn't enough for him. He was asked about his relationship with Diddy. He said that it was just more of a boss-employee type of relationship as far as he knows, but he did feel like Diddy did not respect him. And it was because he was dating Dawn, which was one of his artists. At some point, Diddy had Dawn has her own artists and all that stuff. It's a long drama. Qwanell and Dawn were dating. And we find out in this interview that Dawn is like 8 years older than he is. I said, wow. And why he feels like he didn't get respect from Q out from the dating perspective of Dawn is because he wanted to have full control over Dawn. And Q was the type of person that would probably find out information, and they were trying to find ways how to get rid of him. They talked about a time, this is when Making the Band was on. I said Meet the Band, Lord Jesus. Making the Band was on, and he was invited to the Hamptons, and he had never been invited anywhere. It was just more of still this employee boss thing. We didn't know each other and all that good stuff. He was kind of friendly high during that time and all that good stuff. So while they're in the Hamptons, Dawn gives Q an ecstasy pill, as far as what she's telling him. She takes one and he takes one, and she said that Diddy wanted us to take it, or Puffy wanted us to take it. Soon after, he was knocked out. And next thing you know, he woke up and he was screaming. And later on, he described the screaming was like screaming like a girl. And cameras were recording at the time. He talked about, I guess he did this interview with DJ Vlad. I have no clue why anyone is offering anything to DJ Vlad at this point. But that's your choice. Different strokes for different folks. But you get what you get. So there was a lot of edited stuff that just didn't make any sense. And he says he doesn't blame media, but at the same time, they need to be a little bit more responsible as to what the information that they're giving out. Especially if someone is being vulnerable enough or willing to give you information. There's no sense in sensationalizing or making it about something for whatever reason, you're not really given the full scope of what's going on. He feels like he was about to be sacrificed, possibly taking him out, as to why he thought that there was something going on, because he thought the ecstasy pill as for what Dawn was saying, was for him and Dawn to get freaky, and he was down for that. But it wasn't. Something else was going on. He still doesn't know what happened, transpired. He remembers jumping in the pool at some point. And he remembers some light sometimes, but he doesn't remember anything whatsoever, and nobody will say anything. And then his mom started speaking up, and what the weird and odd thing, I'm repeating what her son said, the cameras were recording and not telling him what happened. Of course, they aren't telling him to protect themselves. So anything could have happened. I don't know if he got RAP'd or what, And because of probably the position he was in, he probably didn't check himself out. And he doesn't even know how long he's been out. As far as what, I didn't hear anyone ask specifically that question. Q ended up coming home to the parents' home. And we're looking at this child who was energetic, bright, and all that stuff, and then come back someone totally different. What he did was he came home not understanding what happened. He locked himself in his room and he was just talking to himself. So, do they blame Diddy? They say that they know Diddy orchestrated all of this, or they feel that Diddy orchestrated all of this. They went to the doctors to find out what was going on, what was in his system. They thought it was something, but there's been other chemicals that was inside of his body that they can't even determine. I'm like, y'all, that's crazy. On a personal note, it got me thinking of my brother. My brother's his birthday is coming up on the 29th. And I feel some ways about it. His unaliving is still mysterious. Of course, the medical examiner said that he passed away from natural causes. The night he passed away, he had cocaine in his body. However, the medical examiner said that it wasn't enough that should have unalived him. It freaks me out today. When news broke about my brother passing, there was this girl that used to hang around him all the time. Was in my DMs, had his picture up. This was when I had a Facebook page. And was asking all these questions. You know what happened? Da, 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 da. We come to find out he was at her house that night and he ate from her. And she's cool with people that he's not cool with. And again, it's still a mystery. We can't prove nothing. But it's more leading to that his food was laced with something. Because how he actually passed away, he was on the toilet. And over in the night, his head was like this, like head and hand was on the counter right next to the toilet. He was still sitting on it like this. And he was found that way. Of course, the person he was staying with, that was kind of like, I wonder if she was a part of something, but when I talked to her and spoke to her physically, no, it wasn't. But however, yeah, it's been a mystery. So it kind of gave me in mind as to how I was feeling in regards to what possibly Q was going through. And it's quite dangerous how these folks really operate. You don't know what can happen to people. And it's also having me think about Chris, Kim Porter's baby daddy. And how he feels like Diddy was trying to get rid of him. He's coming out with his autobiography. Sorry about that. Getting tongue-tied for nothing. Pretty soon, and I think he's going to be talking about that because he does believe that he's a part of that, and then also the unaliving of Kim Porter. Anyways, he said that he was admitted several times in the hospital. I said, Lord. So it wasn't a one-time thing. He said that he was like going out, talking to trees and all that stuff. His mind had been reduced to a 6-year-old. All he would all from this pill. During season 4 of Making the Band, Diddy was trying to get rid of him. I guess on the episodes, they were like, he's fighting and all this stuff, and he really needs to go. So allegedly he was supposed to be going, but he didn't. He ended up going to the Super Bowl with Diddy, Cassie, and Dawn. They feel like Dawn was a part of allegedly grooming Q to be served to Diddy. what happened the day that they went to the Super Bowl. They were in the car or whatever, and he told one of the executives to get out and have Dawn and Q sit in the back. And they had this little small conversation about everything. And he just felt very weird and uncomfortable as to, it looked like he was scoping out to see how he can get in and all that stuff. His mom said, you know, nobody can really stand me up there because of how much I inserted myself. I think a lot of things did not go down. Because, look, we just here to dance. We're not here to do anything else, you know. A shout out to Players Club. But, you know, that's how it was. But she was also made to look crazy in the media with some of the things. And a lot of things she couldn't speak out about. She felt comfortable enough to say what she feels in this moment. That night at the Super Bowl, he was high on ecstasy, which was his drug of choice. He talked about the party scene. You know, you kind of had to go to these parties to fit in. You had to take drugs. What Dawn and Q would be going back to them, report to his mom, talk about the parties and what they're offering and all that, but they would lie and say, no, they didn't take this stuff. Do they believe that Dawn and Cassie, they said, first they did ask, do you believe everything that Cassie was saying up there? And he says, in my opinion, yes. Especially having first knowledge of what he was seeing or what he witnessed, you know. They talk about Dawn. Do they think that Dawn is a victim? It's kind of blurred lines. It's like, when you dissect this, it's like, okay, I could be Team Dawn. When you dissect that, it could be Team Diddy. And it's all about, or not Team Diddy, but, you know, saying, oh, no, I can't be Team Dawn. But it's like, there's things that they felt like Cassie was not comfortable with and other things she was comfortable with as far as being the person to lure the person in. However, when a person's been programmed, let's start there. When a person's been programmed and you got to do what that person says and what they like, you got to perform it. No matter if you liked it or not so uncomfortable with it. Or you really got to sell the thing. And I think that, in my opinion, you know, Diddy used a lot of people and for a lot of different situations as far as luring people in to do this and that, But they said, well, where is the line of being a victim and being an accomplice? I think that those are things that people, whomever is a part of Diddy's thing or anything else in the world, have got to come to terms with and deal with and take accountability for. I think that there is overall a victim mode, but what you are willing to do, even as being a victim, comes into play. I mean, look at Charles Manson. Charles Manson did not commit one of those unalivings, but he brainwashed those people to unalive all of those other people, the victims, you know? So, even though they kept him alive, and we won't even go there, but, you know, people feel like force always has to be this action word of, you do this or I'm going to take you out of the earth. It could be just that type of influence, and somebody that kind of commands the room and dominates your space and everything about you, you do kind of give in to that power that's there. Q had asked for his family to be close. So Diddy's team said, hey, we found a house for you in Virginia. Right before they were supposed to move, they said the house fell through, so you can't come. So it felt like, they were like, well, why would she quit to try to get his career off and all that? No, they were promised certain things. But however, she still would look a certain way as far as how media was spinning. Mom says, what they were asked is, do they blame Diddy? Mom says, I can't blame Diddy, but I do know he is not innocent. Dawn was 8 years older than Q and had major influence over him. And Q also said that you really couldn't tell me anything about Dawn. That if you weren't speaking peacefully about her, y'all can forget it. I'm not. What are we doing? We're not doing that over here. Dawn is my girl, and that's that. And I already talked about the pills had broken him down to a 6-year-old child, and he finally got well or at a great state within the year of 2020. At this point, I don't even know how I feel about, how can I say this, giving opinions on certain things anymore. Especially if someone could orchestrate and manipulate to make you think certain things about a certain individual You think they're crazy and all that. Da 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 da. And it may not be crazy. It's just the narrative and the propaganda that's being thrown at us. And I know that we just go by what we can see up front, and we don't have all the facts. But to know that these people are going crazy. One person I was talking with my barber about it. I think about a lot is Justin Bieber. And I really think he's got a story to tell. Is he gonna tell it? Probably not. But that one has been through a lot, and we've seen him go through it. Now hearing people speak up, you can tell what the influence was and what the culprit was in this whole situation. And all I can do is just pray for him, and hopefully he's free. So, but y'all give me your thoughts of what Q was talking about. Like, that's some deep stuff. If you got to drug somebody to do something that you want done, that's crazy. And then you want to get them under the influence so they possibly get out of your control. And probably they got stuff on tape that they wanted to blackmail him or whatever. However, he got away. I thank God that Q was doing better. I think that Dawn is a victim and can be an accomplice. Cassie can be a victim and can be an accomplice, but accomplice to the point of being influenced or forced to do stuff. It happens all the time, especially when they get your mind and tell you to do all this. So am I just going to look at Dawn crazy? I don't know. If she has not made amends with Q about the things that she participated in, as far as what they feel like she was baiting him and luring him and grooming him for Diddy, then I would look at her kind of crazy. But Dawn has her own story about the stuff that she has dealt with Diddy. It wasn't pretty. So look, I'm not going to justice for Diddy or nothing, like some of y'all allegedly human beings are. I say allegedly lucid. Or loosely. Like, whatever. But y'all can give me your thoughts on what you feel about these latest revelations of everything that's been going on with Diddy. But until my next one, I appreciate everyone for coming to my channel. Like, video, subscribe. Peace.